Hello, everybody. This is Dion Hinchcliffe from Congress Media. I'd like to welcome you to our Google Hangout session. First one we do under the new naming of the Enterprise Summit, formerly named Enterprise Summit. It's now the Enterprise Digital Summit, and well, I'm the head of conferences, but also this kind of content production, subject matter discussions that we do put live there. And today we have a very nice discussion. It's a very nice discussion, high-level discussion round that I like to welcome here on stage. I start a short, brief introduction of each one, and then your own introduction. So we've got Dion Hinchcliffe here on the line. Hello, Dion.
Hello, Bjorn. My name is Dion Hinchcliffe. I'm a Chief Strategy Officer at Ajuvi. I explore, research, and advise on social collaboration, digital transformation, and I write for ZDNet as well.
So next to Dion, we got Harold Jarche from Canada. Harold, hello.
Yeah, hi, Bjorn. Yeah, Harold Jarche. I live in Eastern Canada. I've been interested in what the internet has been doing around work for about the last 20 years, and my focus is a lot on how learning, particularly workplace learning, has to change around that. So I've been blogging on that and working with clients around innovation insight, usually with a human learning focus on it.
Okay, next in my little personal timeline down here in the Google Hangout window, it's Isabel De Clercq from Belgium. Hello, Isabel.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Isabel De Clercq. I work for Wolters Kluwer, and I'm called to be a trends catcher and a sparkle architect. So I follow trends in learning, organizational learning, leadership, and latest months, I'm really passionate about knowledge sharing, social collaboration, and future-proof leadership.
Okay, great. And last but not least, we have another guest from Sweden. I'd like to welcome Oscar Berg. Hello, Oscar.
Hello, Bjorn. Nice to be here. My name is Oscar Berg. I call myself a digital strategist, which is sort of title that tells people that I'm helping organizations, guiding them in how they should approach digital media and use it to improve their businesses. And I specifically focus on digital collaboration, questions related to the digital workplace to make people more productive and engaged at work with digital tools. And I also practice service design and act as service design leader when designing is like digital services.
Okay, the topic of this afternoon is that we want to discuss how we can make the digital collaboration work. So we heard a lot about social during the last years, and now we also heard about social is dead. That's also some of the reasons that why we, for example, also changed the enterprise to all topic. So it's not only about the social technology, it's more about the cultural change management, it's more about the digital transformation of the whole company beyond that. So there are more factors into the change that is going out there. Going on out there than only the social technology, but still, the social technology is a key driver and key enabler for the new kind of working we want to establish. But of course, we also know that within the traditional organizations, work is kind of broken. There are also some nice presentations out there, for example, from Oscar, but also from other people, where you all talk about knowledge, the work, and knowledge work is broken. So therefore, we have to think about how we can make this work, really, the digital collaboration, because within this network ecosystem, there are new kind of rules and new principles, and we really have to think about it. And what we well, we want to narrow the discussion today because there's a whole lot of things to be discussed within this scope. We want to discuss it on the individual level because change management, you always can think of the organizational development, the organizational change, and then also on the individual. And actually, the topic of discussing this came from a nice discussion from 2 postings brought out there. So Oscar developed a digital, I hope I got it right, so digital transformation canvas. You have to explain this shortly, and also based on works that Harold has done before a long time already on the works of personal knowledge management. And also Dion interferes into this with his work on thinking on working out loud. So this is all around this topic of this individual enablement for digital collaboration. And today's objective of this discussion is really to find a common ground, to find some common recommendations that we can give to people out there driving their projects within this field. So maybe first we start coming from Oscar, because somehow for me, for today's discussion, you are the impetus who gave the start for thinking about this session. So maybe you explain your digital transformation canvas first.
Yeah, I will give it a try. Well, the canvas is based on a number of capabilities that I have not on my own, but together with other people, framed as essential for knowledge workers and the kind of work that organizations have to do, as opposed to the more like structured processes, repeatable work that a lot of organizations already have automated and sort of where humans are reduced and removed from work in the organizations. The organizations now have to support a different kind of human labor, human work, and it's creative, collaborative knowledge work. And we're not very good at supporting it because we haven't been focusing on that kind of work until quite recently. And these capabilities are meant to frame a lot of the like common capabilities for knowledge work that are needed in different contexts to support knowledge workers. So it could be used for team collaboration, but it could also be used for communities to exchange knowledge and ideas, or for innovation management, etc. A lot of different contexts. And my point of view is that if you improve these key core capabilities, you will sort of aggregate improvements and enable knowledge workers to collaborate in many different contexts with digital means. And it's absolutely essential to collaborate digitally, because the consumers are so fast, or we are moving fast, rapidly. Before, organizations were the ones that introduced new technology, and now it's the consumers that get access to new technology, and organizations are trying to catch up. And the only way to do that is to start working together digitally. So that's sort of the game plan for this framework, and I use it in my assignments to frame what kind of gaps exist, depending on starting from what goals they have. Like if they want to improve innovation, or if they want to improve performance in product development, where should they start improving? Where do they have, what kind of gaps do they have in terms of digital capabilities or digital collaboration capabilities? So that's sort of the background behind the canvas, and I realized that it can be used for many different purposes, for many different objectives. Well, I hope it can, at least. I think that's why the discussion started.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar, for this explanation. I'm just I was not prepared, so I wanted to fit in also your canvas as a screen so everybody can have a look at it. But maybe I will do it right away. So let's go over to Harold, because you responded on this. So the skill set that Oscar came up there. It's also all based on the skills you need for digital work, and a lot of thinking behind this is also you are also discussing this a long time from this perspective of the personal knowledge management. Maybe you give us a short introduction into personal knowledge management first, and then also give us your response to Oscar's posing.
Yeah, the PKM, I'll do it second because I think it's important to show how Oscar and I worked on our different models and how they came out, because Oscar published the original work, and I don't even think it was called the Canvas at that time. First of all, the Canvas that he has recently published and that you're going to put the link up to, I mean, it's excellent, and it's a really good starting point, and it's definitely something that I would use with clients. And so it's very, very, very nice of Oscar to share that publicly under a Creative Commons license, which helps us all. But I came at this, particularly the competencies. At that time, Oscar had 7 competencies. When I had a problem that a client had given me, I had worked with this client previously, and they had restructured their corporate university, so their learning and development department, and they had gone from a pushing content, pushing courses perspective, and they were going towards a performance, social, and enabling what they called do-it-yourself learning amongst the 20,000 people in the company. And I had worked with them for about 6 months, and then 6 months later they contacted me and they said, well, we have a problem. And the problem is that we have purchased all of this technology. We have enterprise social networks, we have Jive, Yammer, SharePoint, Link, a whole bunch of different products, and the head of IT, so the CTO of the company, had gone to the chief learning officer and said, okay, you guys have changed your learning ways because you think that's going to help with business performance. Tell us whether or not we have all the technologies and the appropriate technologies that you need. And they said, we don't know. So they hired me, and I didn't have an answer to this at the time. They hired me to try to, what they called, simplify the complexity. Is there a way in which we can have IT and learning and development speak the same language? And I put together a framework initially around the technology side, and a big component of that were the 7 competencies, and now the 9, I think it's 9 in there, that Oscar had put forth. And what I found interesting about them was that they came into 3 different components. One was collaboration, which was working together, getting stuff done. The other one was cooperation, which was sort of freely giving and sharing, but not specifically to actually do a piece of work. And then the third piece was more the internal sense-making by writing or by working out loud, by learning out loud, by creating diagrams and sharing those, which Oscar called content creation, and all of this has kind of morphed along. But what
I'm
was
just putting the canvas here on screen now, so
yes, excellent.
You can talk further.
Okay, so
that's the framework. That's the framework. Just to clarify, the canvas tools are used.
Yeah, that is the framework for the canvas, the components there. And what I find interesting about this is that, as now Oscar has continued to develop it, is that what was originally a look at what tools do we need correlated back to what capabilities do people, what are the individual competencies that we should be looking at. And I've grouped those just into 3 things. One is the personal thing, and that's when I talk about personal knowledge mastery, I have a framework called Seek, Sense, and Share, and it's how do you actually continuously make sense in your profession. And then the other one are the collaboration things, which a lot of companies are quite good at. getting work done, doing that. Those are things that can be tweaked. And then the more difficult one is the cooperation, is getting people to work outside of their silos, and in some cases outside of their companies where they're going to be getting interesting ideas, which is how I got these ideas. Oscar and I were talking about this before we went on, live on air, about the serendipity of Oscar when he originally published his work, and it came across my feed almost the same week that the client had given me this assignment. And so it was because I was connected to a lot of different people that I had this, just what was perfect for me at that time came through. And that's something that can't be planned for. But
so here's your image of the regrouping. So that's it.
Yeah, and so that's it. So I'm a big simplifier, and so that I see it as sort of three areas. Collaboration, again, is the green part, working together to get stuff done. Cooperation, which is more of that freely sharing and not knowing where it's going to go. So that's the stuff that a lot of companies have difficulties with. It's not 100% your job, but that's where we get ideas. That's where we get insights from. And then I put the seek, sense, share of the PKM framework in there, which is more the individual discipline of constant sense making, looking at your network, seeing if there's enough diversity, and then sharing when the time is right. And I should probably pause here anyway.
Great. Thank you both first. So let's go to you, Darren. So I also found a post of where you relate to the works of Harold as a post about the skill set needed for the digital transformation. And within this, you're pointing out one of the very important central thing is really the personal knowledge mastery, so that each of the individuals are really going after the principles to master their knowledge management. But then you also address some more points. Maybe you can tell us a bit about this.
Well, sure. Thanks, Bjorn. So what's really interesting about where we are with technology and collaboration and work in general is that we have so many more new digital capabilities, things that weren't even possible before, like being able to enlist and orchestrate large amounts of people through the network. And what we're consistently seeing is that the technology pouring into our organizations is outstripping the skills that our employees have. Harold has this great saying that today, with knowledge management and knowledge work, really learning is work and work is learning. Right? We're always doing something new almost every minute of the day that we haven't done before, and using these new digital tools. And so what I wanted to do is sit down and say, all right, so can we synthesize all of the modern digital skills that a worker should have in order to be able to work effectively, to be able to sustain change, and to be able to help with things like digital transformation? Because I very much believe that we're not going to centralized IT departments, the chief digital officer. Those are useful for basic capabilities, but for an entire organization to become truly digital requires everyone to be in the digital transformation team, right? And to do that, we need to have modern skills. And so these are things like network leadership. We're really good at teaching people about how to exert and lead through traditional channels, but we have very little discussion, even though Harvard Business Review and many other business outlets are talking about this a little bit. We're not teaching it. Most managers, most executives, most line workers have never even heard of the concept network leadership. So that's one of the core skills. Working out loud, just sitting on the network and sharing what you're learning as you learn it, what you're doing in a very lightweight fashion. That triggers so many great activities inside the organization. But working out loud is something John Stepper and others have been talking about for years now. But it's, again, not taught as a general workplace skill. So the point of that post you referred to, Bjorn, is we really need to, we can't overload today's worker. They already have so many things to do and so many tools to use. But can we have a basic set of skills, that modern collaboration and workforce skills for the digital workplace, that most workers should have? And if they had it, they would be okay. They would be able to teach themselves. So that includes things like personal knowledge management, which I think is core to that to that self-sustaining digital employee? How do I learn enough about what's going on and teach everyone what I know so that we can work more effectively as an organization?
Isabel, now I want to get you into the discussion again. I muted you because of your background noise, but only you can put you back. So you have to push the unmute button on top. I cannot get you back from my side. There is a unmute button in the window on top.
Yes, it should be in the little window that just shows your figure, isn't it? Or is it?
Yeah, it should be right
Oh, at the
in
top
the
center. That's right. Yeah.
over there. So,
You need to move the cursor.
And then you
Because
see.
it disappears.
Oh, we didn't check this out earlier. So there's a little window just above my head as now I'm speaking now. So no, it's Dion still on the screen. So but now I'm on the screen. So there should be a little window right there.
Ah, wait. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now
Yes.
I got
Okay. Yes, my son, he would be laughing with me. My mother needs help. Okay, good.
So
Here I am.
So,
There might be some noise.
How about the skill set you need for the digital transformations, the literacy you need for the tools and settings?
Yeah, literacy. Okay, yeah, indeed. Well, I'm trying to introduce working out loud into my company, and I see it is rather a difficult thing to do, and I was asking myself, why does it seem so difficult to do? And I think there are different things. The first thing is that it's about self-reflection. It's about reflecting about the things that you do, reflecting about your work and who you want to be. It's like a rather philosophical question. And so this reflective mode, I think that people are just not used to do that. Because they were just used, even knowledge workers, I think they were just used to do things, and now we ask them to be in a kind of a, well, in Dutch we say in a meta position, so really to be reflective about what you are doing and what you know. This also goes together with, let's say, a new kind of a view on what is the employee, because before, you had the managers and the leaders who were supposed to think, and then you had the staff who were supposed to do things. And now this boundary between leaders, managers, and employees is getting blurry. And, well, everybody now is supposed to be in this reflective mode. And a lot of people say, yes, but I'm not used to do that. And I don't want to be a manager, and I don't want to be a leader, but I think that if you want to be a strong employee in the future-proof organization, we all have to be, but our self-leadership has to be very strong. And another thing is, I was wondering whether you have to be a good communicator to be able to work out loud. Because I really have a lot of colleagues who are in this reflective mode, but who still have a lot of difficulties in putting their knowledge in social technology. So I think there might be something about having good communication skills, because it's not that easy to be concise, for example, on Twitter. So I'm really asking myself questions about it. Maybe the others, they can give me answer to my question. Is it about strong communication skills too?
Well, it's interesting that is the central point of Oscar's model. Maybe he can tell us why it's.
I didn't know that. Oscar, tell me, help me.
Can you rephrase the question? So
your communication is at the center of your the component model. Yeah. Is there a reason it's at the center?
Okay. It is actually. I have changed it a bit since I released it, because I have actually a lot of it is about communication, and what I mean with communication that is in the core is this back and forth communication between people, because I have sharing also as a capability, and that is also a form of communication. But central at the heart is conversations. So actually, I am changing the model to instead focus on conversation. Conversations are the core of this model. And
so it's just a renaming from communication to conversations.
Yeah, exactly, because it's too broad, like communicating. I got this as feedback, actually, which is good when sharing things with others, that you might get feedback to improve.
Yes, but yeah, if I can say something, Oscar, what I see, what people are comfortable with is to react to other to somebody else. They have no problem with that, but about being proactivity in sharing what you know, that is really a difficult thing to do. So conversation and communication, it's not the same, since reacting on something that is there, they are comfortable with it, but like starting a discussion about telling about what you know, that is a really different thing, and it's really complicated for a lot of people.
If you look at my model, the framework, I would say that there are two capabilities that are harder to develop than others. One is workspace awareness, or becoming aware. That is really hard to know what's going on. That's sort of foundation for cooperating and learning and collaborating. You need to know what is happening and so forth. And the other thing is that drives the cooperation and collaboration is having conversations, to having real-time near flow, like to having this kind of exchange that we have now. Of course, sharing is important, but when I talk about sharing, it's more of this kind of non-real time where we produce and communicate across time and distance using some kind of media. So that's sort of my definition of sharing. There are overlapping capabilities, but why I put these in at the center, just to explain, I talk a lot about communication culture. And to me, that is the essence of what we are talking about, the kind of change that we are talking about. There are a lot of skills that we need to develop, but the main skill we need to develop is how we communicate, like knowing what tool to use for what kind of communication, but also how, like, we're supposed to communicate, embracing openness, transparency, inviting participation, dialogue, etc.
Diane, you had also a comment.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, communication is the foundation for all of these things that we call sharing, cooperation, collaboration. I think the important point, and this is one of the things that I think is still not well understood, is all you can really do with these technologies is communicate. Collaboration is really something that happens up here, right? That those are the changes that you make based on communication you've had with other people. What you've learned changes what you do next. And so the actual process of collaboration is within us, right? But communication is the basis for all of it. And unless we have good communication skills, unless we have good leadership skills, we're not going to see the types of behavior changes that we'd like to see. And I think it is a skill. I think that almost everyone can learn to communicate better. It's not something that you're born with. I think that's really important to say. Everyone can get better at this. And if you do, you will be better, and your business will be better, and it's worth the investment in time.
Oscar, you said that you were talking about different skills that were hard to develop, and I think you were talking about what I call the self-reflection, reflective mode, weren't you?
In the model.
Yes.
I don't know if I specifically did it in the model, but I do it a lot because would you like to continue? Otherwise, I could. I see it.
I'm sorry.
I see it as a key problem in general, in the kind of work, information work, knowledge work that we do, that we don't reflect on why we do things and how we do them. We don't communicate why we communicate in some way, or most people don't.
And then I was asking, I'm sorry, I was asking myself, how can we develop that kind of skill? I think that is an interesting question also, and I was thinking that maybe if there would be like more transparency in the organization about on what we are doing and how we are doing things and why we are doing things, that would contribute to more self-reflection in an organization. But I'm really asking myself this question, how can we develop that skill of self-reflection? But then, of course, we are not maybe talking anymore on an individual point of view, what Bjorn's question was at the beginning. It's all, of course, interrelated and interwoven, the individual and the organization.
Let me say something here. I think the individual. I'm a firm believer in Deming's 94/6 rule. That sort of most of the problem is in the system, and only part of it, a small part of it, is on the individual. So to change the individual, how we behave as individuals, we need to change the system. So it's you cannot have this discussion without discussing.
Yes, and I think that an organization, so the individual is only going to change if the organization changes. And I think an organization only changes if the context changes too. And that is what I see in a lot of organizations in Belgium. They don't see the context because they only have an internal view and not an external view. And they don't see that customers are changing, that the context is changing, and they are too slow in adapting social and digital collaboration, which is, I think, a very dangerous situation. So we need like this Russian puppets, you know, how do you say that? The Russian, you know, the how do you say that? The puppies, that we have like
Stacking dolls.
Like the dolls, yes. We have the individual, we have the organization, and we have the context, we have the world. Yeah.
But Harold, I thought you also have a comment. Do you? You were moving at this.
I think we have lots of comments. I think again the piece around communication and also awareness that Oscar was talking about, and the component of reflection, I think are all sort of wrapped up together because, you know, if you take a look at the 20th century workplace, a requirement for workers was literacy. You had to be able to read and write. You know, you had to be able to read instructions, and that was a given. No one, if you're not literate, you can't get any work anywhere pretty well. And as we move into this digital workplace or the network era workplace, I think that the common literacy is going to be communication, but communication in the larger sense, which includes the sense making, which includes the awareness of things around you, and so again that's the literacy, but it's not the literacy in which we think about. It's not literacy to be able to read and just sort of write. It's also being able to engage people. And Dion has a very good point when he talks about let the network do the work for you, and maybe he wants to go on that, because the network can't do the work for you if you're not engaged with the network already, I think, which is an interesting point.
Yeah, that's well said.
And what do you mean by engaging people, Harold? What does it mean, or Dion?
Well, I think that you know, we were just talking about on Twitter how still a lot of CIOs are not literate in enterprise social networks. They're not present, and leadership is such an important component of engagement in general, right? So the less you think yourself of a leader, the less you're going to initiate the kind of behaviors we're talking about, which is sense making out loud, working out loud, managing your knowledge out loud, because everyone benefits from that, because even the sharer, because you learn from the other people who have additional things to add to it. So engagement is the process that really allows you to trigger the value creation, and I think that's what's so important. So working out loud is an important skill because it reminds you I should be regularly engaging. It doesn't need to take up a lot of time, but I need to be getting the ideas out there. I need to be sense making out loud, working out loud, leading out loud. And the more that I do that, the more that I get back, which to Harold's point, what's amazing is that the more you do this, the more the network joins you in doing your own work, and it's really remarkable. And that's why these skills are important to teach.
And do you see that in the United States of America it works rather well, it goes fluently, and do we see a difference between Europe and the US?
We actually do see it, and I think that we are less formal in the way that we often apply workplace IT, and I think that in some places Europe is actually ahead. And I've written I've summarized a lot of the case studies. If you look at organizations like Bosch, BASF, Continental, Atos, the list goes on and on. You have Bayer had some great stories
in Germany.
Summit. You know, you have a lot of efforts that are at the CEO level saying, no, this is how we are going to work as an organization going forward. And I think that's very exciting. We see some of that in the United States, but we don't. We see much more tactical use of enterprise social networks, not so much at the leadership level.
I'm always a friend of bringing some more structure in this whole transformation process. So I did a little bit of preparatory work for this session. And I wanted to share. I put it out there also in a blog post. But I worked a little bit. I hope you can see this already on screen. Yes, you can see it. So I looked a little bit into the academic work and in the academic understanding and findings on how to change on the individual level. And certainly you have those different theories like this social constructionism, the group dynamics theory, and so on. And from all these, if you think about, well, we want to move organizations from a traditional collaboration behavior towards the digital collaboration behavior, and now have a focus on the individual workplace where there are models and approaches who emphasize, like the ADKAR model, for example, which stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, which emphasize really much also the training and coaching aspect. So though you might put a sense of urgency into the change, into a new kind of working, and showed them, you still need the people to get trained and coached, that they can't fall back into their old ways of working. And then also there's also this reinforcement on the gamification and reward thing in there, and certainly also always this interception between the individual and the team level, where you go into the group dynamics, and you need the amplification of the good practices within the group, so that you got the confirmation from the group. And this is on the individual and team level, but certainly this always needs to be set up into an environment of supportive, in a supportive organizational environment, where you got the cultural values of openness and appreciation and recognition, and you also got a kind of management of the value change already, what we talked before. And within this setting, I try to somehow fit in the different aspects or the different recommendations we talked, that I also got from your Canvas model and also from your work, Harold, where we have to talk about we have to train the personal information management ability on the individual level, and also the sense making, because a lot of people normally get the sense making from the process in the traditional ways, and now they have to find their own sense making. Then we need the reverse mentoring for the group dynamics, working out loud, which is also more on the group dynamics level. And then certainly on the other side, you got the organizational environment, like the democratic organization. You need this as an environment, otherwise you cannot enforce this change, and you need those leadership values. So how do you think about this structure? Because I think a lot of discussions or a lot of issues we got with the with the digital transformation, also with the discussion out there, is that we have a lot of singular aspects and recommendations of what to do, but we don't really have a real theory or a real approach to it. So what do you think? Can we structure this in any ways? This is certainly not the ideal way, because this is a 2 hours work only, so there must be a more sophisticated approach to it, but certainly there must be something, or can't we even relate, or is it wrong to relate these new approaches to these old theoretical and academical frameworks? So what are your thinking on this?
I think that there might be one element missing in this frame, is that before you start to train people, you should explain the why. You should tell them why digital collaboration is so important, why it is important for the organization, and why also what's in for them as an individual. I think that's a very important thing to start with.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the why of digital collaboration. And then you have, of course, well, the answers were already given by Dion. If you give something to the network, they will help you afterwards. People know what you are working on, so you can help other people, etc., etc. It's also, it has its benefits for the productivity of your organization, agility, speed, etc. But I think that a lot of organizations, they forget the why, and they only focus on the why, on the benefits of the organization, and they don't talk enough about the benefits for the individual.
Mm-hmm. What are the other points of views on this? So can we relate these new digital approaches and also the recommendations on how to change the work towards the old traditional academic frameworks behind it, from
I think
organization development?
Yeah, no, we are seeing new management theories that are more holistic emerging. So things like hierarchy from John Husband, holacracy, responsive.org, even the whole social business discussion. But all of these are incomplete in some way. We don't have, I think anyone who says that they have a complete view of how we should be managing in these new digital organizations, it wouldn't be correct. The story is still emerging. But I think there are steps in the right direction, and I do think we need to borrow the things that still work from the old academic models. There are some things that still work, but we need to overhaul and update those practices, and I think that the academic community has their work cut out for them to adapt them, but I do see that happening as well. So I think all we can do is build the management practices that we think will work for our culture, our organization, and our individuals, and borrow from the best. I think that's all we can really do right now.
But Dion, aren't we just at the moment only in the transformational phase? So isn't just digital transformation just the transition from the old model to the new model, and we are just in the change process, and we need change approaches and not yet a final management model?
Yeah, I don't think there's any final to-be state, correct. I think that digital transformation is probably going to be a fairly constant process going forward, that we're not going to say that, we're never going to say that we're done, right? There'll always be something left to do because things are changing, new innovations, new technologies, new possibilities emerge all the time, and we have to seize them. But I think it's about the new management practices is how to change in a sustainable way, and so I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Harold, what is your point of view on this?
Yeah, definitely. The change part, the constant change, is what I call, perpetual beta. Yeah, and if you think about that, is that if the organization and the individual have to be in a position in which they can change, they need a few things. I think the concrete things that organizations can do is, one is to remove barriers to the types of things that we're looking at. You look at the 9 components of Oscar's model. Okay, take a look at what are the ways in which we can remove barriers to people to do that. Okay, that's relatively concrete. You work on awareness. you also have to hold the space. I think that that's a management model, is that if you want the organization to be changing and learning all the time, you have to give them the space to do that. And Isabel brought up the concept of reflection. Well, where's the reflection space? Where's the reflection time? How do we actually put reflection into our projects as opposed to getting on to the next piece of work? So that, I think, is that end state is going to be different. There's no best practice for every single organization. We can find some good practices, develop some emerging practices, but the main practice is being more biological of a model as opposed to a mechanical model. But this is the way things have to go. I mean, Reed Hastings, CEO of Netflix, he said, what you have to do in his organization is that we're not putting in more structure and processes, we just hire more smarter people, and that those people then can figure out the complexity. So that's what you have to do, is that let the people deal with the complexity and not the system. And a lot of that, again, is just removing barriers, I think.
Oscar, what is your point of view?
My point of view, when talking about change management methods and like structures, is that a point that I would like to make is that many of these methods, approaches, have been designed to help organizations make people adapt to new or changed systems, like processes, organizational structures, etc. And now we're talking more about how to make the system adapt to people. Like how can we actually empower people to design their own work, to collaborate with other people more freely, etc. It's a reverse mindset. So I think we need to look at these frameworks or methods with a different mindset from the employees, people, end users' point of view, because a lot of the problems that we have is because we are sort of subject to so much complexity and inflexibility, and we're disconnected, etc., as employees. And we need to see how we can create an environment that is the opposite, that is simple, that is flexible, that connects us to other people and information, while at the same time encouraging and allowing people to do all these things that we talked about, sense making, working out loud, etc., learning while you work instead of being trained, etc. So I think my personal point of view is like the things that were mentioned, like often you mentioned, like gamification and so forth. That's something that could be done easily for routine work, competitive work, where you can define it in advance. But it's hard for the kind of work that organizations need to do and people need to do. That's unpredictable.
But when you get appreciation within from your working out loud approach, you get a reward.
Yeah, but but gamification is a little bit about mechanics. You know, there's a sort of when you design a game, you have a plan for a game, and you apply mechanics to that. Here we need to more apply it's more behaviors that we need to have and adopt, like that we reward other people when they share.
Well,
we recognize
the ADCAR model is only about reinforcement of good behavior, so it mustn't be with a gamification approach. So it's just an example.
That often, like we use, I'm a little skeptic to gamification.
I am too. I say that work is already a game. It doesn't need another layer.
No, it should. You should have an innate sort of drive to do your work. You shouldn't have this need to gamify, like for routine tasks, administrative tasks maybe, but not for kind of work that you should be passionate about.
Pierre?
Yeah. No, Isabel, go ahead.
I would like to ask a question to Harold, Dion, and Oscar, because when we're talking about the future of work, it's about being more connected with customers, being part of ecosystems and communities. Then I used to think it was all about culture and about people, and I used to say it was about like 80% of people and 20% of technology. But then, with the social technologies that we have now, I'm starting to change my point of view. I think because of the social technologies that we have now, like for example Jive and Yammer, I think that the social technology is really at the heart of the transformation, and that it's because of the technology that finally culture will change. So it's about, you know, what is first? Is it about technology or culture, or the two of them interwoven? And yeah, I'm starting to think that at the heart of the transformation, you know, like the triggering thing is just not technology, but the social technology. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll weigh in first. So I've thought a lot about this. Is how much is this about us, and how much this is about the technology? And we are co-evolving. But I think while the technology is really important, what's really happening is that change is being imposed from the outside world, right? So the broader culture, social technology, social communication is being embedded in everything we do in our personal lives, and that's forcing its way into that cultural change. Not so much the consumer technologies, but the external cultural change is being imposed because customers have different expectations. They want to be able to reach out and talk to us. They want to be able to work with us. And so I think that the technology is
that's true, but customers are changing.
An external cultural change, which is then being imposed outside.
That's true, but I think that customers they have changed their behavior because of the social technologies.
Yes,
because now they have a voice. And, yeah. So technology would be like the trigger.
You have a comment on this?
Well, one thing that we do know historically is that when the dominant mode of communication changes, then what happens is that the way that we structure as a society changes. So that when we went from the mostly oral to the written word, we went from tribes to larger institutions and kingdoms. When we shifted from the written word to the print media, is that not only did we get the rise of the nation state, but we also got the rise of markets. A lot of that was enabled by things like bookkeeping and other forms of, and also wide distribution of scientific knowledge. We've now shifted from print to electric media. Started with the telegraph and is continuing on. So that the technology is actually changing our institutions, and we're going into more of this network world. And David Ronfeld's done a lot of work on this. He calls it the TIMN model. Tribes, institutions, markets, and networks. We don't lose any of them, but there's another layer built on. And we don't understand what the network era is going to do, but we already see that it's creating new types of organizations. I mean, we started, you know, early on this with things like the United Nations and more network things, is that we are going to see a lot more network-type organizations. We're seeing that in finance with blockchain technology. Those are going to have fundamental changes to everything. We're not going to lose our institutions, we're not going to lose our markets, we're not going to lose our families, but we are going to significantly change as a society in the next 50 years, I think.
So you also, so it's about technology.
At the high level, it's about the big technology, not the little. It's not about the Apple Watch.
No.
But it's about the big. It's about communications technologies. You all Dion.
You have an Apple Watch, I'm jealous. No, but if you look, you know, Harold, if you look at the picture of made by John Husband of Hierarchy, you know, when people are nodes in the network and they are connected, that is for me technology. It's the personification of social technology, of people connected with each other. That is for me technology. But then they think we should have a good definition of what is social technology. It's not about the Apple Watch, but I still would like to have it.
It's about the way that we communicate on a large scale, and the fact that we can. Dion had a very good post, I think yesterday or the day before, on this, and about what happens with digital companies in terms of how the digital assets, the reproduction is free of anything that's digital, right? And so that you can copy and reproduce as much as you want, but that also means that the value is going down. So what happens when the value of everything that's being produced in a network society really has a value of zero? You know, these are big, you know, big hairy types of questions, and I don't think anybody has the answers, but there are some good questions.
Topic for another session.
Yes.
So we are at the end of.
Can I say something about?
I'm sorry.
I actually have a point here in this, and I would say that.
Oscar.
I would say that technology, like it's key, to survive as an organization. Like you can't remove it and just start collaborating without technology. You need it to have a future as an organization. But then how to change as an individual organization, that's another thing. Like if you don't have the intent or the cultural readiness, you won't be able to adopt these technologies, even if you have adopted them as a consumer, because when you come to work, there are other norms and behaviors at play than when you're as a consumer. Those are the ones that sort of either enable the transformation or hinder the transformation. So I see this in many of the organizations that I work with, how the culture prevents using and spreading these technologies in the organization.
Okay, so yeah, we passed the 60 minutes already, and normally we always say these sessions should be just only about 60 minutes, because afterwards it's hard for everybody to follow it longer. But still, I want to close this with a last round of recommendations you can give to the people. So as you denied my approach of structuring it into the old traditional change management approaches, what are your approaches, or what are your recommendations on how to move this forward on this individual level? Certainly, always also that you haven't denied with the interception to the team and to the organizational level. So what should be done first? And where are some generic recommendations? We know all that there's no blueprint out there that can be applied to every organization, because each organization is unique and got their own specific challenges. So, but what generic recommendation can you make? So let's start. Well, Dion, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I'll make it simple. The basis of all this change is some way of continuing to learn. So for the individual, learning to continually learn and making time for it. So that's personal knowledge management, that's working out loud, that's taking time to sense make, it's taking time to learn network leadership, that's the new way of working. And I think open collaboration, collaboration skills, and realizing that there's very different ways of these new ways of working don't produce results necessarily faster, they just produce richer, better results, right? So collaboration is hard and it's messy, it's a human activity, and that's why a lot of people don't want to engage in it, and we have to learn to get past all of that. So just work on the basics of the new digital literacy skills, and you'll be able to make it in this brave new world.
Harold.
I definitely agree with what Dion had said. One of the challenges that I, both at the individual and the organizational level, is that if you want to be doing not just organizational transformation, but being able to continue to do that change, is that you need to make space for it. And that means that you need to probably get rid of something that you're doing already to create the space and the time for it, and on an ongoing basis. And I find that is the major stumbling block, is that people are too busy with the busyness of work today, and you've got to get rid of something in order to bring something else on board. So yeah, make space, make time. That's the key.
Okay, Isabel.
Yeah, I'm really fond of this self-reflection mode, and when people want to start on Twitter or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Yammer, then the first question I ask them is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be, and what kind of voice do you want to have on social technologies? And if that becomes more clear, then you can start sharing your knowledge, etc. But if you don't know who you want to be in your professional life, but also in your private life, then it's very difficult to start. So it's about start with self-reflection.
Okay. Oscar.
Yeah, it's hard to add. I will just enforce what you already said. I think reflecting on your work and why you do things, and starting with a why. I think a lot of people have problems with that. They're focused on what to do. So they focus on emptying their emails or all the emails in their inbox, not questioning why do they have so many emails. Could I do it in a different way? So I think that's an example of what Harold just said, Dion. So take charge of your own situation.
Okay.
Start with why.
Great. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Isabel De Clercq from Brussels. Thank you, Oscar Berg from Malmö. Was it?
Yeah,
was
it? Yeah.
Malmö. Thank you, Harold Jarche from Canada in general, but I don't know, you're on the East
Sackville,
Coast,
New Brunswick.
Okay. And thank you, Dion Hinchcliffe from Virginia. Thank you for this lively discussion we had this afternoon. Certainly, we have seen that, well, the topic of digital transformation is still a topic that evolves and emerges. So in regards to the recommendations and structural foundation behind it, and we have a lot of discussion to be done on this, and certainly we provide some more nice conferences on this. Maybe I just want to use this little channel here on just to give you a view on what is next on our agenda. So we got the IOM Summit coming up in September with also Isabel speaking in Cologne. Then we have also the Enterprise Digital, the new named Enterprise Digital Summit, formerly Enterprise CO Summit in London, coming up at the end of October. And then last but not least, our I2 Summit, which is more a smaller conference on internet and intranet stuff in Switzerland, but also with very strong focus now on collaboration and digital collaboration, also with Oscar giving us a keynote at this conference. So there's a nice conference setting coming up in the second half of this year, but we will continue also our Google Hangout session again to discuss more these specific aspects of the digital transformation. So happy to have you with us. So we now have about 25 viewers at the end, so that's quite nice. And maybe join us again next time. So see you then. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for hosting this, Bjorn.
Yep. Thank you.